This morning, after a raucous nighttime rally in his new home state of Florida, we've got some important new clues about President Trump's robust impeachment defense and about just how important he sees Florida to his reelection. Even by Trump standards, the Sunrise Florida rally was pretty wild, including a moment that one reporter described as being like a crowd chanting lyrics back to a rock star. Just a quick warning to our viewers, though, the president used some colorful language.
They're pushing that impeachment witch hunt, and a lot of bad things are happening to them. Because you see what's happening in the polls? Everybody said, that's really bullshit.
Joining me now to talk about this, national political reporter at The Washington Post and MSNBC political analyst Robert Costa. Returning are Rick Tyler and Michael Starr Hopkins. So, Robert, you wrote about this rally. I was reading the poll reports last night, and it kind of read like, even though he touched on a lot of the same talking points we've heard, it was vivid. It was energetic. I know the campaign billed this as a homecoming extravaganza. But how did you read what you saw last night?
When I was inside the arena as a reporter in Sunrise, Florida last night, it was evidence that President Trump was seizing on his own grievances and sharing them with his political base ahead of the 2020 campaign, reassuring them about his own political standing, trying to rally them to his side as he faces down these impeachment proceedings. And he used that vulgar language, those colorful phrases, to try to rally them to him.
Yeah, I want to show kind of one example of the, let's call it colorful. I mean, the president knows his audience. He did a mocking sort of play acting of impeachment. He mocked Joe Biden last night, but he also added this, which I think is new to his repertoire.
They said he went into the hospital, and it's true, I didn't wear a tie. Why would I wear a tie if the first thing they do is say, take off your shirt, sir, and show us that gorgeous chest? We want to see. We've never seen a chest quite like it. But they said he wasn't wearing a tie. This is a sign of a massive heart attack.
Never seen a chest like that. Michael, it's a new line, but it's a common theme that Robert kind of just touched on. Mm-hmm. The theme being he's being treated unfairly. And I think in a way it mirrors what a lot of his 2016 supporters felt, that they were being treated unfairly. I think Politico calls it the narrative of persecution. But is it effective, especially as it plays into the impeachment narrative?
Well, the president being a victim or playing a victim is nothing new. I do think the medical event, it was interesting in terms of the media coverage for Hillary Clinton in 2016 about her health was, an everyday cycle. When she passed out on 9/11, it was, the story of all stories. Now the president being rushed off to Walter Reed, he wants to pretend like, it was nothing. We'll find out at some point what it really was. But you can tell it got to him because he brought it up at his rally. And whenever a story really gets to him, he uses his rallies as a opportunity to push back and fight back and, kind of turn it into grievance politics.
Yeah, though I've never heard it quite put out there that way with the...
It was weird.
Yeah. Rick, for the president, I think rallies always serve a dual purpose, right? He's messaging outward, but also inward. He loves the crowd. He loves to play to the crowd. Although, again, from the poll reports, it was thinning out as the night went on. Can we overstate the importance of these rallies to keep his reelection alive and also to keep his impeachment narrative out there?
Well, Chris, he's used the rallies very successfully in 2016, and there's no reason that he wouldn't want to do that again. I do think it's interesting that he's emphasizing Florida, because I do think he's in trouble in Florida. I mean, Governor DeSantis barely won Florida, but he did it with a lot of Puerto Rican support. Now there's more Puerto Ricans in Florida, and the reason they're there is because the hurricane that the administration so failed to properly come to the aid of. So look, he's going to continue to do this. But I really enjoyed Robert's line this morning in his piece in the Washington Post about he's going to run his campaign. He's going to run a grievance campaign. I mean, that's literally the campaign message. He's going to run a grievance campaign, not a visionary campaign, not what we're going to do for America. We're going to talk about what America is doing to him, and that's why he deserves re-election. It's really astonishing.
Yeah, I think that was one key piece of your point in your article, Robert. But the other thing, obviously, is the importance of Florida and sort of how all of this plays in together.
When you look at Florida, the transplanted seniors from other parts of the country that are moving there, the white voters, the conservative activists, that formed the coalition that elected Senator Rick Scott in 2018, beating the Democratic incumbent, elected Governor DeSantis by a narrow margin. And if the president wants to win re-election in 2020, his advisors know, and they're telling reporters behind the scenes, they need to make sure that senior voters in places like the industrial Midwest, but particularly in Florida, come out in droves. So when they do run this grievance-style campaign, it's about stoking those voters to make sure they turn out, rather than perhaps making a more moderate or centrist pitch on other fronts.
Look, Michael, we don't know who is going to be, obviously. We have no idea who is going to be the Democratic nominee, no matter how many times people ask us. We don't know. We don't have any particular crystal ball. Having said that, when you look at what President Trump can do, the crowds he can draw, he was mocking last night one of the Democratic candidates who he said at one of their rallies got only a handful of people to show up. How do the Democrats, and how does a Democrat, whoever that is, compete with that?
Well, I don't think you can compete with that, nor do I think Democrats should try to. President Trump has a cultish following at this point, and so I think to try to, imitate that would be a lost battle. Instead, I think Democrats need to create a broad coalition of African Americans, of Midwesterners, of people of all types, a big tent party, and then inspire them, because I think that's the most important thing for Democrats. We need to be talking about what the next 4 years, what the next 10 years, what the next 20 years looks like, and why we're Americans. And I think if we can do that, if we can tell our story, then I think we can win and recapture the White House.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.